Hi there, and welcome to today's episode where we talk with a fellow freedom seeker, with a fellow van lifer. We talk with Yvonne Hemmings, who is a mom, who's a grandma, who is an independent entrepreneur. She sold her house 18 months ago to live in her camper van. She's traveling around Europe, balancing life between UK and Portugal or exploring Europe whilst running a business where she helps overwhelmed women to create calm and clarity through coaching systems and grounded support. And she really helps people figure out what it is that they want from life, what kind of freedom are they seeking, and how can she help them find that freedom. So today's conversation covers all of these topics. We talk about van life, about travel, about freedom, about comfort zones, about boundaries. It is a beautiful conversation, and I'm excited to invite you in. So let's go.
But before we get into this beautiful conversation, here's your reminder. Do subscribe because we really do want to reach out to as many people as we can because we have some amazing guests who share some amazing tools, advice, and some really uplifting stories. So hit that subscribe button, like, and even share these videos with your friends, colleagues, or whoever you feel would benefit from these, or just all your connections. So hit subscribe, like, and share. But now let's get on with this beautiful conversation.
Hi, Yvonne. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. Really pleased to be here.
Well, I'm so excited to talk to another, can I say, fellow van lifer, fellow traveler, someone living on the road, taking the leap into this alternative lifestyle, but also still working and running the business and making the dreams come true. So, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, who you are, what you do? Is this van lifestyle part of why is it part of your journey? How does it fit into your life? I have so many questions.
Okay, so I'm Yvonne. I've been a digital nomad actually for probably 9 years, but I've only lived in a van for the last 18 months. And it has very much become part of what I'm doing now because I want to empower other women to realize that there's freedom out there and it doesn't have to be this conditioned lifestyle we're led to believe. So I've actually, although I work very much with systems, I've actually gone into freedom coaching as well because it can be freedom comes into your business too. So it just make your business easier. So you've got the work-life balance right. So you can have that, whatever freedom means to you, you can have that lifestyle, basically.
I love the idea of freedom coaching because freedom seems like such a fundamental, essential thing for us that we here in, Europe, the Western world, almost take for granted. Like we live in a free world where, we have the freedom of movement and freedom of religion and freedom of choices. And yet we do tend to follow one or two very specific paths. And the deeper we are on the paths, the more restricted and locked in and we lose our ability and awareness of that we have a choice. I think choice is a big part of what we talk on this podcast a lot about. So I would love to know maybe a little bit about how have you realized your freedom, like where your journey leaning into freedom. Have you always been a free spirit and lived freedom life? Or was there a moment where like I'm going on a path that does not work for me? I need freedom. How did you start it on this journey?
Yeah, I've always been a bit of a free spirit, but obviously I went down the usual condition route. You must get a job, you must buy a house, get a bigger house, get a better job. And the more I went into that journey, I realized that I was feeling very, very trapped. And it was only when I really looked at my values, I realized that my core value is freedom, obviously apart from family. It is so important to me. So when I was around, I think I was 45, so not young, but I actually left my marriage because I felt really trapped in there too. And yeah, started living on my own. Then I changed my job, quit my job because that wasn't fitting either. And I'd looked into how I could work for myself, but be much more free and not be doing the 9 to 5. And that's when I came across virtual assistants. So I went down that route to start with. And from there, it's evolved. Like I got into automation, which is obviously freeing because it frees your time. And then more recently into the van life. So yeah, it's been a process. and I've come up against criticism, but I've pushed on through. And yeah, I must admit, I'm the happiest I've been in a long, long time.
I can imagine that, and I've been through it, the feedback of the friends and family and colleagues, where especially, you had a husband, you had a family, you have kids, you have grandkids, you have parents, you have people around you, where you live a stationary life, where you live a life where, it's predictable. You're kind of on the same level of everyone. Everyone lives in the same level of, lack of freedom and lack of control, and everyone lives, I don't want to say the same level of misery, but there is this kind of earning and yearning of for more. And when someone wants to break free from that, often the community, the system, if we don't have the right people on our journeys, can be little tense of like, what the hell you think you're doing? How did it go for you? Like, was there any, what were the levels of people's resistance possibly and feedback and or encouragement for you to take this leap?
Yeah, I think family wise, my children still don't get it because it's just, yeah, I'm living in a van, so I'm doing something out of the ordinary. My mum still, you say you've sold your house. Yeah, I've sold my house. And it's just, but then I've had friends that are like, if you want to do that and that's what makes you happy, then go for it. And so I've had it all. But I think it's how you react to that. And initially, it probably delayed my decision to go all in on the van life because I was listening to too many people, too many opinions, worrying what people think. I thought, sorry, and it was only when I stepped back and thought, no, I've got to stop listening and do what's right for me that I actually went ahead with it.
Because it is an unusual, well, now it's becoming a lot more popular, a lot more doable, but it is still seen as a very alternative lifestyle. It is still seen as, you don't conform. How is it possible? How can you live in a small space? How can you? Lots of people will tell me when I do it, especially doing it as a single female. I think there is
Yeah.
something especially on this level. Be like, oh, are you so brave for doing it? And in my brain, it's like, it's not brave because for me, there's no other way. This is it. Like for me, it would be scary not to do it. And I always say, even that I am reasonably risk adverse person. I like understanding my risk. And in the last couple of weeks, I was kind of co-traveling with another traveler who has a motorbike, and we were taking a couple road trips on motorbike. I'm like, that is scary. That is the risk beyond my comfort zone to go on someone else's bike and let them drive and give them the control. And I'm like, now I'm realizing how out of my comfort zone that is. But going back to my van, I'm like, this is easy, this is safe. And for lots of other people, it will be like, no, 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 this, like, I can't imagine. Even people who do it in a couple, and I speak to lots of couples, when the woman is like, I would not do it by myself.
Mm. Yeah, I get the same. And I've got on social media, obviously, when you share your videos, men particularly, are you not petrified? I'm like, no. I don't even think about where I am. I go with my gut instinct, but once I'm in that van and I feel safe in there, I don't think about what might happen because you could be in a house and the same thing happens. You could be burgled. So, yeah, I think there's a big fear factor for a lot of people that probably want to do it and they just stop themselves because they're so afraid. So yeah, I that completely resonates. I've had the same thing, and it is couples that can't understand why you'd want to do it as a woman. But I think it's so empowering, and there is, like you say, more and more women doing it because they have their families, and often there are older women and they've had the families, and then they're like, "What's left for me?" And then they go off and change their life because they want something more for themselves.
Or it's girls my age where like the relationships kind of never took off. They always ended up in relationship that just were not for you, and you were helping to kind of again been almost forced to go on the traditional path of have a relationship, have a family, settle down, to be like, well, actually, no, this is not for me. Like I am open about it. I've always known I don't want to have children. I'm child free by choice. So there's quite a few people of voices of realizing that actually having children is not a requirement for happiness. Having a partner is not a requirement for happiness. There are different ways to find, joy and fulfillment and contentment in life. So I think this is an interesting perspective on it as well, to see why we do it from different age groups and different genders and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But one thing I wanted to add is, in terms of the safety, that we live in a world consciously where there are good people. I choose to live in a world where wherever I go, there are good people who are caring and supportive, and that, nothing's going to happen to me, because obviously we are taking certain precautions to not to put ourselves at risk. But the rest of it is they're just good people everywhere.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And actually, I've met so many lovely people on the road, and they do, well, obviously they do think you're brave for doing it, but it's just they're supportive actually, which is, and it's not often not people that you would expect that would be supportive in everyday life. But yeah, you meet like-minded people as well, and it just yeah, it's just I love the whole community of the van life. And yeah, and those that are living in houses, they still embrace it. You'll always get the people that are negative, but you get that in all walks of life. So
Love this. I'm sitting talking to two van lifers and something, and I've said this to Lenka, I love the idea of van life, but for me, it's not, I'm either not in the right place or it's too impractical. And especially if you do a lot of sewing like I do, you need a lot of space. So,
yeah.
but I do get the idea of living in a van and just essentially having no roots because your house can move wherever you want it to go. So I hear that you English. Do you mostly travel in England or do you go to Europe as well? Where do you find you like to travel?
Yeah, both. But I actually did invest in a little place in Portugal, not because I wanted roots, because I don't. It was more about an investment of my money. But yeah, so I'm unable because of the Schengen zone. I'm unable to go into Europe for more than 6 months of the year anyway. So that it really works in my favour because I've got grandchildren and a mum with dementia. So it's good for me to be in the UK as well. And you don't appreciate the country you live in sometimes, and that's something I want to explore the UK more. There's so many places, even though I've lived here all my life, that I've not seen. So I get the benefit of both.
Yeah, I love the fact that I've lived in UK for about 6, 7 years, and I've never explored as much as in the last summer in the van and this summer coming back to UK. I've never been to Wales, so this year's plan is
Oh,
to head to Wales. Last year we did a big tour of Scotland, and yeah, with the van you really get to places where usually, you wouldn't necessarily always go to.
yeah, 100% agree with that. You see some amazing places. And you just, well, you're free, aren't you? So you can take your home with you, and there's something to be said for that actually, of having your home with you all the time.
Plus your comfortable bed where you go stay in hotels, you never know what the mattress is going to feel like.
Yeah.
So at
Yeah.
least
Yeah, I mean, I'm going away this weekend. A friend's coming with me, and I think she wanted to stay in a bed and breakfast, and I'm like, no, I've got a van with a bed in it. I don't need to stay in accommodation. Why would I do that? So yeah,
so comparing, because we've heard a lot of Lenka's experiences driving in Europe and in England, but love to know what are your experiences or comparisons between the UK and Europe. I mean, one of the things I think is that parking places or where you can park up for the van is more difficult in the UK and can potentially be more expensive than in Europe. I'd love to just get a little bit of your experiences because obviously we've heard a lot of Lenka's, but it'd be nice
yeah.
to have a different perspective and different way of doing it or what you have found that works or doesn't work.
Well, where do I start? Right, so the roads here are just crazy, aren't they? They're just so busy, and there's potholes everywhere. So you go into Europe, and it is a pleasure to drive for me as a UK citizen. It's just a pleasure. Like there's hardly anybody on the road. They're great conditions, the roads. They embrace van life or motorhomes. The UK seems to be so against it. I just never understand that. They're just missing out on so much revenue potentially from van lifers. I haven't come across any real negatives in Europe, if I'm honest. Not for me. I think just it's cheaper there. Everything about it is much more positive. I suppose the only thing, if I think of anything off the top of my head, I did have a motorhome to start with refillable gas, and it was difficult to get the gas in Europe. But that's the only negative I can think. It was just, and to confirm that, I actually went out of my comfort zone a bit further when I was about a year ago, and I decided I was going to pass my bike test, and I did that in a week. And it was never to ride a bike in the UK because I think I'd die on the roads. It was to it was to ride in Europe, and I have done it around Portugal a lot, and I feel safe there and it's pleasurable. But I would, like I say, I'd never do it here. So yeah, for me over there, there's so many positives compared to the UK.
I would say one exception, and that is Italy, because I'm currently traveling around Italy and the roads are, I'm like, Scotland was okay, the roads I could tolerate. I always say that Cambridge, where I was living, Cambridgeshire has the worst roads I've seen in UK. It's ridiculous. But oh boy, Italy is just kicking our butts. Italian driving is just like nightmare by itself, and then the roads are a nightmare by itself. So most of Europe, Spain, gorgeous roads, France, Germany, rest of the Europe, beautiful roads. Not Italy.
I've yet to experience that.
If you're going to be talking about roads, I've got to give my 2 cents in, is you guys have nothing on roads. Now, I've just recently moved from the UK back to South Africa, and I know the potholes in the UK have been getting worse. Yeah, wait till you come to South Africa. They don't have potholes, they have canyons in the middle of the road. It is really, you don't drive in a straight line. You drive like this constantly.
Wow.
So yes, I can comparing when I compared England when I arrived to it and their roads to when I left, it was like really bad with the potholes. But having lived back in South Africa for a few months, not so bad, not so bad. So next time, Yvonne, you seeing a pothole, just think, okay, it could be worse. It could be
Yeah.
worse. It could be like South African roads. So
Oh, I remember that.
I just wanted to, hop in and be part of the conversation with roads and potholes.
Oh,
Well, I
yeah.
think I would love to, take the conversation now a little bit more into what is it that you do, how you living this life then evolved into what you do on the road. You mentioned you started with doing the VA thing. There's lots of kind of online businesses you can easily-ish get into, social media, marketing, content creation, VA, whatever skills that you have these days, you can figure out a way of supporting yourself on the road. And I'm curious then to learn more about your freedom coaching, how does it work? Who do you do it for? What are the obstacles and challenges you see people facing? Love to learn more because I love the sound of the concept and definitely fits well with your lifestyle.
Yeah, yeah. So, like I say, I still do some VA work because it is my skill set. I was a board level PA for years, so it makes sense to do things that are easy. But then I qualified as a life coach as well, and I think once you're a coach, you never stop asking the right questions, and that comes in with the clients that I work with, often business owners, often mums that are trying to run a business. They've got a family and they're just overwhelmed. And I come from a place in the past of being a massive people pleaser, which you end up lacking freedom when you're like that. And it's helping them put boundaries in place and stop the people pleasing on a personal level. But in their business, we look at systems, we look at what's going to make their life easier. And we just go through a 2 hour intensive. We talk about everything that's happening in their life and business, and then we put plans in place to give them more clarity, really. And I use what I call the clean method, and we work through the structure of that. And yeah, and they come out with a report if they want further coaching, like one-to-one coaching, and then there's that there as well. But yeah, generally it's just a 2 hour intensive to give them tips and show them how they can live a freer life.
So what made you decide to start the coaching? Because VA is very versatile, and there's a wide range that you can do with VA. And like you said, that was your skill set, and why not do what's easy? And I get that. But what made you decide to think, hang on, I want to add coaching to it? Or what made you decide to sort of study to become a life coach and then go sort of in that direction?
Well, to start with, it was I had a client that ran a training company that was training coaches. So I said, "Oh, I'd love to do that." So that's how I initially got into it. But then people come to me all the time and they're asking me questions because I am living a life that's different and a freer life. And so I find people are drawn to me, and I naturally love helping people as well. So it tied in, and it tied in with on a personal level for people in terms of a life coach. But then, like I say, it tied in with my business because I did question, am I in the right place? Being a VA, where does that tie into the freedom? But it does, because the automation and that side of things ties in. So it all interlinks loosely, but it interlinks, and it just feels like a good place for me to be.
Can you share some? So, for our listeners who are thinking, you know what, I've heard a couple of podcasts or watched a couple of YouTube videos thinking, about van life. Can you share a little bit about what sort of people, if somebody's interested in wanting to find that freedom and going to van life, what are some of the sort of things to look for or to think about or to process? I know there's the practicals of finding a van and making sure it's livable, but within themselves as a mindset, because if you go from a house that's stationary to a van that's small, way smaller, and moves, there is a mind shift. So how would what sort of tips can you share with people who are maybe borderline thinking about it, or maybe they've never even thought about it, and this is something that we've now planted a seed? So there's sort of tips or things to look for, or just anything from your experience.
Um, I suppose for me, I spent at least 4 years watching other people doing it and learning from them, because I knew that I wanted a different lifestyle, but I wasn't sure what it was. So I watched that to start with. Um, but I was feeling so trapped in the house. I look out the window and all I could see was some more bricks across the road, And it's like this morning I've looked out the window and there's an open field. So I think it depends on your personality for one, and what your outlook is. If you are materialistic, it's probably not going to work because you have to simplify your life, which I actually found really therapeutic and refreshing, getting rid of stuff that I didn't need. I think we fill our lives with all these material possessions, but it's, what do you really want for your life? So there's a lot of thought that goes into it for me anyway. And I'm sure for most people, because like you say, you've got that stability and then all of a sudden you're in a much smaller space. Um, but yeah, yeah, and don't listen to everybody. I think you've got to go on what you want. Just don't listen to everybody. But it's different for each individual person. What the reason I did it will be different to the reason Lenka's done it probably, and the thought process for her will be different to my thought process. But definitely, I just needed freedom. I wanted alternative. I wanted a cheaper way of living, and I wanted to travel. So it all fit for me. But like I say, that freedom for somebody else might be something completely different.
And I do love that we're touching on the fact that, your lifestyle, my lifestyle, the freedom definitely looks quite extreme to many. That our freedom means we really want to be a new place every other day. We want to be surrounded by nature. We want to move. We want to explore. We want to really be in control so much more of our lives. But it's not freedom does not look exactly the same for everyone. For some, it's just more financial freedom to, have a business that you can scale and you can earn, and then you can buy yourself prettier things and better things, or invest in your health. For some, the freedom is to not be dependent on a partner, a family, or someone to be able to step out. So it's interesting to explore the definition of freedom for different people.
Yeah, and it is definitely different. It is, like for me, like you said, nature's cute. I just feel happy. The minute I'm up in the hills, I'm smiling. I feel free. I feel free in my band because I can move and go wherever I want. But for someone else, it's not that. It might just be that they have more time freedom. It is subjective to each individual, really.
But one thing I'm curious about is, obviously in the van you're then a lot more exposed to nature and elements, a lot more dependent on the weather. Like, yes, we try to run away Van lifers tend to have a similar patterns of we don't necessarily want to do the extreme summer or extreme winter, even though there are people who do like Arctic van life and hot van life, but majority people tend to rotate to, somewhere warmer for winter, somewhere not so hot for summer. But then if you have to be in the UK for, half the year, not always you can pick the right weather in the UK. And obviously, lots of van life is spending time outside. You have chairs outside, you have the awning, you're, cooking outside. So much of our lifestyle evolves the outdoors. Not only just hiking and exploring, but just the living too. There's so much. Otherwise, you will just literally, you're trapped in a little can. I'm curious, how do you handle then, on the road when the weather is just not on your side? And I know that in winter tend to have more of the, seasonal affective disorder, lots more people struggling with the, you know, weather, darker days, longer days, more miserable days. How have you found this? And again, how do you manage it on the road?
Yeah, well, it's funny enough, it worked out that I was away in the height of summer in Portugal, 40 odd degrees in a van, and then I've ended up in winter in the UK, minus whatever it was. And yeah, it's tough. It was tough. Yeah, days where you just sat in your van but I think initially I would sit there and I'd think, oh, this is hard because I do suffer with SAD in winter anyway. But then I changed my mindset and I started going out in the nature, regardless whether it was raining. Just because it's raining doesn't mean we have to sit in the van. We can still get out and talking to people or moving and going and being in a coffee shop so that you mix in with people. I find that's really helpful for me. My whole demeanor's changed now. We've got when the sky's blue we've got the light at night. So it is, I'm not going to say it's not easy in winter in the UK. It's not. But I've survived it and I'm actually really proud of myself for doing that. But I do know that next year I won't be in the UK in my van in winter. So yeah.
Yeah, it's just choosing the country to be for certain months kind of can change a lot of the experience. But you did mention the important thing, and it's the people as a community. And I am curious because I live this life and I'm finding ways and I'm an introvert, so I'm a reasonably shy person, I'm reasonably self-contained person, so I can be quite happy by myself, but I know I need people, I know I need a community. How are you finding your community, especially when you're on the road? Obviously, when you're in the UK, you have your friends, you have your family, you have a mom, you have your kids. But when you're then traveling to Portugal, to places where you don't know anyone, you're on the road, how are you, what are your tips or tricks or insights or, give me some of the inspiration of how can you actually meet people on the road and build connections? Like you can have a small talk here and there, like you can talk to people, but more of a how do you do it to stay connected and build deeper, meaningful relationships with people still on the road?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually made a lot of friends, especially females, through Facebook actually, and they're van lifers as well, and you can arrange to meet up with them. But also going on campsites because obviously we have our van admin to do, and you get chatting to people that way. And I've actually made some really good friends doing that, and going in local cafes and just yeah and involving yourself in the local community because you will meet expats of whatever nationality, and I have done that, particularly in Portugal I've done that as well, so I've got people there. But yeah, it's just you do need the people without a doubt, otherwise it is lonely, whether that be on a Zoom call or yeah meeting people face to face.
So as Lenka mentioned, you run a VA business and your coaching business in van life. How do you find the the balance between sort of the working and van lifing? Because when you on your own or not doing a lot, you can take on a lot of work to keep busy or something, but you pick van life because you want more freedom and most probably to travel more, and therefore you can't necessarily have a 40-hour week job, so to speak. So how do you find that balance between your clients and your life, so to have that the right balance and not taking on too much work, but then also not saying no to a lot of work because you need the work, obviously? So the thing is, How have you worked out that balance?
I know that I only really want to work about 4, maximum 5 hours a day so that I've got that balance. And so I just don't take on any more clients that are going to push me over that. I want that freedom means so much to me that I would rather have the freedom than like thousands in the bank, if you like. So I just work part-time basically. And I suppose I'm lucky that I'm in a position that that's enough for me. It might not be enough for somebody else, but it's how I work it. If I wanted to work more, if I wanted to work full time, I could. But then I'm sat in a van or a coffee shop working when that was the whole point of being in a van was to be free and go exploring and get in nature more. So I make that work for me on the amount of clients I take on.
It's setting those boundaries, it's
Yeah.
having those right boundaries in place. And can you give some tips on putting those boundaries in place? Because, like you said, you were a people pleaser and you've learned the boundaries, and a lot of, especially women business owners, are people pleasers and they'll say yes rather than saying no. So, can you give some tips on how to set those boundaries to really stick to your part-time working so that you got the extra time for van lifing?
Yeah, well, I mean, saying no is difficult to start with. So that's a huge thing. Learn to say no. And actually look at the thing you've been asked to do, really. Is this something that should be landing on my shoulders? I think that's a massive thing because I've often taken on things that I probably shouldn't be doing. Well, there's no doubt I shouldn't be doing them, but I've wanted to please, so I've done them. And it is about having those uncomfortable conversations sometimes. But I think for your own mental well-being, yeah, learn to say no and look at the things that are being asked of you and are they really where you want to be? And then you have the conversations. And boundaries with family as well. It's like when you are at home, obviously like I've had a bit of a drama today, but it's just, yeah, if I let my family, they would take my time without a doubt. Because I've got grandchildren, so they want help with those. So yeah, and that's hard sometimes to manage expectations of family, but and it's uncomfortable for them when you put boundaries in place, but it's also uncomfortable for me sometimes. It's gotten much easier. The more you say no, I can't do that, it gets easier and easier.
And that goes back to a little bit of the practice. And you talked about the stepping out of your comfort zone, of doing the scary things, of getting your motorbike license to kind of push yourself out of comfort zone. But we as human beings are wonderfully designed to get used to things. So what used to be difficult, what used to be challenging and putting us out of a comfort zone, very quickly becomes familiar. We get like, okay, got it, nailed it. So what do you do these days to kind of keep testing your comfort zone? Because you're driving a motorbike, you're living in a van, you're traveling around the world, you're running your business, you're doing the things. Is there something, small things, little adventures? How are you continuing to push your own boundaries a little bit and put yourself out of comfort zone to, stay a little flexible on the toes and not stay, too set in your ways?
Well, I am a massive believer in stretching your comfort zone. For like, if I look at myself back 9 years when I started my business, the first time I went networking, I shook like a leaf. But because I've stretched that, you can't stay in there. You've got to stretch it, and it feels unbelievably uncomfortable to the point I've been emotional about it. So I am a big believer in that. So now, if there's opportunities that come up that's there to stretch my comfort zones, quite often I want to say no, but I don't. I've got a motto: say yes to pretty much everything that's going to do that. Because without stepping outside your comfort zone, there's no growth. So I find that exciting. It keeps me motivated, and I just want to learn new things, do new things, and if that means I have to have some fear in there to help me grow, then so be it.
Yeah, and our listeners will probably know that we have an ongoing conversation with Natalie because my thing to regularly remind myself is doing cold dips. I love open water swimming. I love cold dips. So for me, every single time, even now, because if I do it in the winter in Czech Republic, it's still quite extreme. Right now in Italy, in the middle of winter, people are still looking at me like I'm crazy that I'm going into the sea. But I'm like, this is nothing for me. Like, this is a beautiful sunny day, 18 degrees, the water is very tolerable to me. But that's because my usual is like the water is frozen and I need to break the ice to get in. That's where it becomes challenging to me. But that is one of the things where, on a regular basis, I make sure that this is an easy thing, this is a familiar thing, but every single time I go into the frozen water, I'm like, why the hell am I doing this to myself? Why am I pushing to do this to my body? And I'm like, because I need to prove myself and remind myself that I can do difficult things. And
Yeah.
this isolated incident, you can then apply the feeling and the process onto other things of, driving on a motorcycle on like these crazy roads or other things that you want to do in life, asking for the raise if you have a traditional job, putting yourself as a pitch for a new client, asking someone on a date if you want to meet someone new. So these skills and abilities are so practical and we can move them from, doing it in one circumstances to others.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like using the motorbike, for example. I had to go somewhere in Europe. On the way there, I was on the motorway for the first time. I almost pulled over because it was windy, it was scary, but I kept going. But then on the way back, because I'd done it, I rode the fastest I've ever ridden. And I loved it because I'd stretched that comfort zone and I'd kept pushing through, even though I was petrified. And yeah, and it just made it so much easier. So yeah, you just got to test yourself and keep pushing through.
I love the comfort zone. It's such a it's a misnomer because it's not really a comfort zone because we just used to being in that place. But I do love pushing it and stretching the boundaries a bit and just finding ways that you don't have to leap out of it. You can just put a toe out and just do a little
Yeah.
bit at a time. Because I know some people just like to jump straight out of their comfort zone, but some people just need to nudge it. But I think the important thing is to just keep nudging and keep going and keep stretching it because we can get stuck in a comfort zone and it's not a very comfortable comfort zone. So it's, as I said, it's a bit of a misnomer that it's a comfortable zone, but it's not. It's just what we are used to. And I think is sometimes the not knowing or something new can feel scary. Like you said, getting on a motorbike, being on a motorway in Europe. I mean, first of all, they drive on the wrong side of the road. Sorry, Lenka, but you do. And so you have to get used to it. You in a on a bike as opposed to in a car or a van. I mean, you're going from a van to a bike. It's
Yeah.
even bigger than going from a car to a bike. So it is, but it's not impossible. It's not undoable. You knew you could ride the bike, but just being on that motorway and like you said, is realizing, hey, I've done it. So guess what? I'm going to go faster now
Yeah.
and have a bit of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get an intense buzz from it because I've stretched myself and it's like, I've done it. So what's next? What's the next thing that I can get that buzz from? So yeah, there's definitely benefits to doing it.
It's really important and well done for doing it and having fun with it and
I
like you said, maybe not such a good idea to ride your motorbike in England with all
know.
the slippery roads and everything else. So it's but it is good to just stretch and push yourself out of your boundaries. Otherwise, you do get stuck.
I'm just curious, speaking of the comfort zone, are there any things that you have kind of on your bucket list that are the things like, when I have the opportunity or I'm working towards, I would love to do X, Y, and Z to, again, things I'm like, I know I will be afraid. I know this is not going to be comfortable for me. I know I'm going to be pushing, but are there any, activities, ideas on your list that are like, this summer or this year, I would love to do X, Y, Z?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it might not be for everyone, and it's not to do with being in the van, but I have a real intense fear of heights. But there's a zip line in Wales. I think it's the highest, longest. And if you want to do that, I'm 60 this year, so I'm going to go do that. And I can't wait. So between now and end of September when I'm 60, I'm going to go do that. And I will. My daughter said, "Mum, you'll be scared of that." I went, "Yeah, but it looks amazing, so I want to go do it." So that's my challenge to myself to do that this year.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Yeah, I've heard of the zip line. It is on my
Yeah.
list to do it. I'm not necessarily afraid of heights. It's not comfortable, It's not like I'm like, "Wee, let's do it." I'm like, still, when you're standing on the edge of something like,
Oh,
what the hell did I get myself into? Even if you're not petrified of heights. But yes, that's awesome.
Have a lot of fun, enjoy, and good luck. And
thank
share
you.
a photo with us with you going, yee.
I think they actually film it, so yeah, I'll definitely share it.
Zip lining is a lot of fun. So we will definitely be thinking of you at the end of September going down the zip line. You will have an absolute ball. You must probably scream and see your heart
Hopefully.
out, but you'll get to the bottom and just like, whoa.
Can I do it again? Yeah.
Yeah. So good luck with that and have a
Thank
lot of fun.
you.
So this is the part in the episode where we have what we call the gold nuggets. So basically, this is where we ask you, Yvonne, may we please have your gold nugget?
It's a saying really. It's feel the fear, but do it anyway. Because we've talked about comfort zones, you're going to feel fear, but if you do it anyway, you'll grow from that, and you'll be a much better person for it.
And I love that quote, feel the fear and do it anyway. It's such a quote that gets used a lot, but it has so much meaning in, and it's really simple. So thank you for reminding us about it and sharing that with us. And this is why we love our gold nuggets, because we always get a good little gold nugget. For our listeners who want to learn a bit more or are wanting to learn a bit more about what freedom coaching is, or get in touch with you, or find out about what it is that you do, or systems or automations, or just want to pick your brains about van life, where can people find you?
Okay, so business really, I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Yvonne Hemmings. And then I'm actually on TikTok under Life Between the Wheels, where you can pick my brains about van life. I'm on the Instagram as well, but mainly TikTok. So yeah, you can find me there.
That's fantastic. And obviously, all the links will be down below so people can go and click and connect with you. Always on this podcast, we want a little more. We're just trying to squeeze in as much, insights and juice and inspiration from our guests. And I love asking this question that this podcast is all about finding ways to live happily, healthily, have more fulfilling lives. And it's called Into Your Life because we want to lean more into our lives, to have more of the freedom, more of the balance. I'm curious, what gives you life right now?
Definitely being in my van, but also spending time with my grandchildren because they're so special. So that's what gives me life at the moment. Yeah, the freedom of my van and my grandchildren.
Love that. And I travel with Lenka through our conversations, and I love hearing about her adventures. And I'm sure, so from listening to Lenka, I get how the freedom of being in your van would be something to give you life. It sounds amazing. As I said, it's not right for me, whether it will ever be right, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It's just not for me. But I
Yeah.
can live vicariously through other van lifers and through their experience. So thank you so much for sharing your journey with us and sharing your knowledge and your experiences, because it's not easy to do. It's not many. I know families do it, but it's not often you'll find a family. And quite often there is a huge, I don't know whether sacrifice is the right word, in order to start the van life. So it is not something that's just done on a whim. It is really focused, and you really do need to follow your heart and follow your passion, with all the naysayers and the difficulties of getting to the van, not just the practicalities, but the emotionals and everything else. So thank you so much for sharing. And I love hearing people's stories and experiences, and I wish you many, many miles of wonderful journeys in your in your
Oh, thank
van.
you.
So thank you so much for sharing your time and energy with us today. We really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm happy to share. Thank you.
Now, for our listeners, what have you got from today? Is van life something you're thinking, you know what, I've heard a lot about it. This is something I really want to look into. Or are you a little bit like me? You just want to live through other people because it's not quite where you at right now. Or are you living in a van? We would love to hear your experiences, love to hear your thoughts. So do get in touch. Let us know, reach out. But until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.